Welcome to season 2 of Fractional CMOs and the 90-Day Win. I'm Dean Wei. This season, we're going to talk through scenarios that companies and these CMOs experience to share lessons learned and tips on how to get the most out of the fractional CMO that you've just hired. All right, so let's jump right into it. Hi, Stefan.
Hi, nice to meet you, Dean.
Hi, nice to meet you. Okay, so you just started a hypothetical 1-year fractional engagement, okay? And today's day 1.
Yeah.
What's the first problem that most of your clients need you to start fixing? Or what's the first problem you go looking for? Because you know it's there, even if the company hasn't perceived it yet. And maybe before that, tell the audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Stefan. I'm doing fractional marketing for maybe like 10 years now. I focus on companies who have a long sales cycle, who have where sort of like marketing and sales have to work together a lot, and they work mostly with B2B companies. So I think that the foremost and biggest challenge that companies nowadays come to me is like, oh, we want more leads. Like more leads are better quality leads.
Yeah.
Which is a question in itself. It's like you can get better, faster, and cheap. You cannot have three at once. Like it's either better, it's either faster, or it's like expensive, right? So you can combine. So I would say that the first is that I need to understand if the company gets marketing, that marketing is not a cure for all diseases. It can help. It can help with brand awareness. It can help with acquisition in some cases. It can help with nurturing. Most often I see marketing helping with nurturing those leads that sales just cannot keep all the balls in one basket. So we help with nurturing a lot. I would say that's the main task, to understand that the marketing, well, the leaders of the company, the C-level, understands what marketing is for, and what's the role of marketing, and what sort of KPIs are assigned to marketing. And I think a thing in it is the attribution. So maybe you've heard about all of these like attribution wars between marketing and sales, right? There are a lot of funny videos where it's like, oh, actually that lead came from a webinar we made 7 years ago, so that's actually marketing. So let's attribute it to marketing. So those things do exist. So I've been in those sort of cases. Sales says inbound is not their marketing says we gave you like a lot of inbound, you just don't know how to sell. I guess clarity is the thing that you need the most when you start an engagement with a client.
Okay. And then Tony, hi.
Hi, Dean, and hi, Stefan. So Tony Watkins, I'm a fractional CMO. I work with companies where really growth has stalled, where it's just flatlined or plateaued, if you like. There's a last hurdle to return to growth where there's really a need to move the growth strategy to action. And really, I specialize in that's where you sit a CMO in a marketing role who can translate that growth strategy and drive it to activity. I've actually been agency side for the last 17 years or so, focused on technology channels, getting mixed into all those kind of problems where you get fracture points and things where just growth just stops and breaks down. For a lot of companies that actually a lot of them, then they're kind of household names folks would have heard of in that B2B kind of enterprise tech space. From my point of view, and actually I'll pick up on what Stefan said about, there's a lot of issues of alignment. And I think the first problem for me is to actually to fix is actually, what is the problem? There's so many times where I've worked on engagements where you've been brought in by somebody's identified an issue, but that somebody has inevitably briefed you and you've quoted and you've got in on the strength of their angle, their lens. And rarely is that the whole story. So I think one of the first things you've got to get in and fix is to actually figure out where's everybody at that's involved in this. This is never one person's problem, whatever the articulation is. So there's got to be a willingness and a sense of urgency within whoever's really got the problem. But there's also bringing about that sense of alignment. Getting over the, well, why are you here? I know you've been brought in, but maybe I wasn't included in that discussion and all those kind of issues. So I think the first thing really is to get a handle on the true problem, bring the stakeholders together, get all those opinions out on the table, There's a large part that I think CMOs can do to actually help people understand how much they have in common and how they share. So back to that alignment, sales versus marketing is a great one. Is it a marketing pipeline and a handoff to a sales pipeline, or is it actually a whole process that we see now of driving somebody with a need who doesn't know about you through a process, educating them, bringing them all the way down what we call the buyer journey to a point we want to engage in sales because they're in that apocryphal 5% that's in market. So I think getting alignment, getting a handle on the true problem, if you do that, the rest of your engagement is going to flow a lot easier because everybody knows why you're there and they feel a lot more comfortable about what you're actually doing.
I worked for 2 different enterprise software companies, and one there was really good alignment between marketing and sales, and one there wasn't. I'm going to give you a very quick example, and you can tell me whether they were aligned or not. It was an executive leadership team meeting. The head of marketing said, "Oh, and by the way, last month we provided sales with 3,000 leads." And the head of sales was there, and he says, "What the hell are you talking about? You gave us a bunch of first names and Gmail addresses. We sell enterprise software."
Well, the
Not so
interesting thing
tightly
about
aligned in that case.
well, the interesting thing about that is I think you get onto it is how they're metriced. So that's a slightly different problem. But when it blows up that far, oh boy, that's a fun place to be.
No, absolutely. I mean, my whole business is based on I only do the first stage of buyer's journey, right? It's my job to talk to prospects or like market to prospects who've or strangers, and make sure the right people are coming through and to get all the right people. And it is like you have very bizarre discussions with people who think that like just about anybody who will download a PDF is a viable prospect down the road. And so like, it's kind of a waste of money to go after those folks, man. Okay, Tony, then how about this? All right, we've talked about that. We talked about the alignment. Let's shift to the CEO for a second, right? Someone made a decision to bring you in this hypothetical 1-year engagement, right? Like other than like opening up, the details and sharing the information you're going to need, like what else should a CEO do to like extract maximum value from a fractional CMO? Or if you want to answer it this way, what do you notice CEOs doing where they waste the money that they spent on a fractional CMO?
So this is the conversation you're hoping you have before you start, right?
Yeah.
But back to what I said to question number 1, rarely does it go down that way. Yeah. So I kind of thought about this and I thought, well, you know what? There's 4 things that I try and cover off when I'm actually talking to people. And the first thing is saying to the CEO, do you know what? You're going to let me need to actually focus on what I do well. If I come in and we go from what we talked about and why you brought me in and the strength and the skills that I've got, and we suddenly start talking about, great, now you're here. That one size fits all replacement for every aspect of creative, copy, media, campaigns, etc. It's just not going to work. That's not why you brought me in, and it's actually not what I'm good at. So that, I think, is the first thing, is let us focus on what we do well. The second thing is then let's make sure we keep focus. I, as a CMO, fractional CMO, I'm going to keep you honest on what we signed up to together, right? So a ton of stuff's going to come up, and that's great. And we can make decisions on whether that actually influences what I plan to do so heavily that we have to change something. But what we don't want to do is to get chasing off after the next bright idea that came up. And again, you see that happen an awful lot, right? Is people just lose focus. The longer you're there, they lose focus. So that's a great thing. I think the third, for CEOs, just a reminder, be open to challenge, particularly in the early days. Yes, you need to extract that information, but going back to what I said in the first point, as I uncover what the true problem actually is, I'm going to need to come back to you and ask you some stuff that might even make you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
If I can't do that, if we don't set the rules of engagement that says that's okay, then you're not going to get full value. And then the last one is making sure that the CEO is able to talk about the business goals. This seems like a really dumb thing, right? Like, what CEO doesn't know the business goals, right? But how do they articulate that? And how am I going to articulate that to the rest of the business that I'm working with? So yeah, there'll be a grand plan. There'll be a North Star. But let's just bring that a little closer to home. Okay, there's a revenue target, and let's say the next 360 days. Let's just take a yearly revenue target, right? But talk to me a little bit about how that's made up. Is this 95% referral and 5% new client. Let's get into some of that detail that's going to allow me then to sort of like say I can do my part now, which is take that business strategy and start to formulate the right marketing activities for the right reasons. And that way, what you're hoping to do is eradicate that unnecessary spend. But the biggest waste of money is when you're bought in for a particular set of skills and then you're just asked to do a bunch of stuff because you're there.
Stefan, what do you think? How do companies, not even CEOs, how do companies waste money on their fractional CMO when they could have gotten so much more?
Well, I would say first of all is attribution, the correct attribution. You mentioned the example with, we brought you 3,000 leads. I mean, those are, I think at that point, those are not even MQLs. I don't know what was that marketing guy doing, but I wouldn't hire that marketing leader, to be honest. If I as a sales get a list and there is no, I don't know where they came from, there is no intent, there is no nothing. I mean, what am I supposed to do? Assign 50 of each to my salespeople and then what, just like wasting my salespeople time.
Yeah.
I would say attribution clarity in terms of like what brings in leads and how open are they? Are they actually curious just to find out more? Or they're ready to buy, right? So basically, attributing to the right type of funnel and the activities that you're making. For example, we realized in the company that I work with, we really realized early on that although conferences events are quite expensive, and the lead can be 5,000. It could be an opportunity could cost $5,000, right, which
Right.
is not cheap. But although you can come up from an event with one lead, the ROI can be worth it. So then we realized that, okay, well, we have to mix up the events, so we go to as many events as possible, um, but like as attendees, not with a booth, right? So that's how you max out the things that are working. So
Right.
clarity in terms of attribution and honesty, I think, are very important. Honesty between marketing and sales. The second is I'll come with the story. I used to work for I worked with a HR company, and there was this like very wise man. And at the end of the every queue, we had a sort of a review process. At the end of the queue, he tells us, it's like, guys, you are not failing enough. I'm like what do you mean? He's like, look, I want you guys to fail more. Like, you're not experimenting enough, so you're not failing enough. You gotta, like, 90% of what you do has to be a failure.
Mm.
It's like, I'm okay with failure. It's like, you just have to try more. And I was shocked at that time. I was like, wow, he wants me to fail more. He wants me to fail more. That's quite weird. But then I realized, like, if you don't try, you cannot win, right? And if you
That's right.
specifically in the market nowadays, everyone wants to scale, which leads to my third point. You have to experiment. You have to be brave enough to experiment. I'd say you would need to have the balls to say your CEO that, okay, I know that this event, well, whatever you're doing, might not bring it is not what you like, but I'll put my honesty on stage. So I'll be the one who'll take the responsibility, who'll take the hit, but I think it might work. So the more experimentation you do, actually the better as a fractional CMO, because you're trying to prove that you're worth, right?
Right.
And if you combine that with honesty, you might get somewhere. Yeah.
Okay, so let's switch to a different scenario for a second. All right,
Yeah.
we're going to talk about your friend. So your friend recently became a fractional CMO, and hypothetically, and has just landed their first client. Right, it's about to walk into a company where there's already a marketing team in place, like junior folks, mid-level folks, a few managers. Right, no CMO obviously because they're the fractional CMO. But like, what advice or lessons would you want to pass along to this fractional CMO who's about to walk into a client where there's already an existing marketing team?
Well, I would
What should they
say,
do or not do, or what should they, keep an eye out for?
um, hire fast, fire fast as well.
Yeah.
I've had a few examples when I went into an existing marketing team, and to be honest, I wish I would have fired. There were a few people who I was expecting them to look. A good player, you can see a good player from day one. If it's not the results, it's the attitude that kind of tells you it's a good player. and you need good team players on the marketing team. I like my marketing teams being lean. So if I see a bad apple, I
Right.
try to get rid of it quickly. That's what I would tell my friend. It's like, look, go through the very often marketing is responsible for SDRs, and you need to be very careful with SDRs, especially if like you're in B2B. They'll say, "Oh, the leads were not good. I had a bad month." Blah 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 blah. Okay, give them little bit of time, but if they don't have consistency, then you have to fire them. So I would say, first of all, fire the people who are not consistent. Second is try to get through. There is in organizations there is a lot of like politics involved. So like the person might not be a good producer, might not be good at his job, but he's good at leaking ass or any other
Yeah. It's
part.
protected.
Protect, yeah. So you have to figure out what is what and find the currency, and at the end try to like get rid of that person. It's gonna make your life hell. Um, Other advice: try to be friends with your head of sales, because you're gonna be doing a lot of good work together in case you're aligned. So you don't necessarily need to give knives as a gift to his wife or partner, but you necessarily need to have an alignment of what sort of leads are you sending them, and what is working and what is not working. um, I would say start with this. Actually, I had a case when I had my friend of mine, Jane, as a fractional CMO, and
Hmm.
we had calls every week. We were reviewing like, okay, you did this, I did this. I was like, okay, this is how I would do, but again, you do you. And I think he's doing great now. It's his third company that he's working with.
Tony, how about you? What lesson or advice would you pass along to a friend who's just about to do their uh, new engagement, and there's already a team in place? Like maybe they normally work with startups, and now it's a more mature company, and so there's already been people hired in. What do you
Yeah,
do or not do?
there's so I what do I think about this? I think it's a really big one to unpack this, right? Because there's
Yeah.
so many different scenarios. You know, you going in as a what type of company? You said a more mature company. You know, if you're going in that kind of operational role with problems around leads, etc., then you know where Stefan's at is you're right in that front line there, and you know you've got to make decisions and you've got to make decisions fast, etc. I think that's different to where I tend to inhabit, right? And that's why it's quite a difficult question to answer. So I'll fire these sort of. I've got kind of 5 things that I would
Yeah.
say, and actually I think some of this actually talks to what Stefan said as well. Actually, the number one is you've got to build trust. And I think Stefan's absolutely right where he's saying marketing and sales have got to be lockstep. They are there for the same purpose, right? To develop, win customers, grow revenue, retain revenue. There just shouldn't be 2 different dialogues going on. And that kind of, you know, it's marketing's fault, it's sales fault. So I totally agree, but I'd actually go wider there and actually say if you're sitting there in a CMO as part of that senior leadership team, even in fractional, you know, you've got product, you've got finance, you've got HR, you've got operations, and all of these guys have got their own objectives. All of these guys are largely operational, so they're coming at things, particularly in slightly larger organizations. You get so much siloing.
Right.
And I think one thing you can do, you are fresh in, you are from the outside, is seek to build trust, help people find what they've got in common. A bit like I answered earlier on. And, you know, that really is going to help you, particularly in that first 90 days. Okay. The second thing is look, let's be honest about this. You don't know what you don't know. Every engagement is going to have its unique bits and pieces. You're going in because you've got a toolkit of consistent skills, but you don't anticipate or assume anything. Get in there, turn over the rocks, take time to understand what's going on, right? You've been brought in because there's a gap of some sorts. You've got to get under the skin of that as quickly as you can. The third, I think, as fractional CMO, that CMO piece is you need to be a leader. You need to exhibit all of those qualities and behaviors of leadership that got you to where you are. And again, back to pick up on Stefan's point, I totally agree. Be comfortable with failure. You
Yeah.
have got to be the person that when something goes pear shaped says, that's okay. That was part of the plan. Make everybody feel comfortable around you. Make everybody feel that they're looking to you to understand how to be successful. You need to be able to show them the path. And that means, setting expectations, helping them understand and, connect with what you're being asked to do. People are bright, right? If they understand how they fit, then they'll often come up with the answers. So that's a key thing around being a leader. Pragmatically, create the plan, own the plan. Do not let the people paying the bill, if you treat them as a client from my agency background, as soon as they've got control, you've lost it. You will be asked to do whatever it is that they want you to do, whenever it is they want you to do it. You have got no control over that at all. And your team won't thank you either, because now you're firefighting and you're firefighting them and you're firefighting everyone around you. So have the plan, set the outputs, set the inputs. Here's what we're going to do. The great thing about that is that then, everybody's on a 90-day time frame here, whatever you signed up to. There's a 90-day renewal, right? Because everybody budgets and thinks quarterly. So now if you've got a plan, you can actually report back on that plan weekly. You can identify progress, and really important, if you're going into the engagement fresh, you can see your fractures and your barriers and call them out. Too easy to get rid of you, right? Too easy. So that actually, do not give up ownership ever. Own the plan. And the last one is more general advice, I think, which is plan your next. Okay. That could be your next 90 days with the client. It could be actually, hey, I don't do this, but I know, within my network here, folks, this keeps it in the family. It's going to keep your dialogue going. It could be your exit, but make sure you know how you want to end, whether that's, the end of one, continuation of the next, or you're getting out at all. So I think those 5: build trust, don't know what you don't know, be a leader, create the plan, own the plan, and plan your next.
So let's invert that question a little bit then, Tony, and then we'll go to Stefan. You're not the fractional CMO. Your friend isn't, right? Your friend is one of the people who works on the marketing team. The company's just hired their first ever fractional CMO. This person had never heard of even what a fractional CMO is, right? And they're suddenly told, by the way, tomorrow, new person coming in, fractional CMO. Like, what's one or two things that employee should or could expect? What changes can they expect now that a fractional CMO has been brought in?
So the question then, Dean, is what should they expect if the fractional CMO?
Like if I'm the employee, like what should I expect here? Is it going to be exactly the same as hiring a regular CMO, or should I be concerned about anything? Is there an opportunity for me here? What's going on?
Yeah, I think, if I was in that situation, what I would want is to get clear alignment on why I'm doing what I'm doing. Because if you've been brought in, there's some sort of gap. Whatever we're doing as a marketing team, it's not quite right. It's either they're not the right mix, or like Stefan says, I'm producing 3,000 leads a month, and sales is saying they're all rubbish. I can produce leads. I'm an expert. This is what I've been doing. This is my career. This is how I've built it. I don't need somebody to tell me how to produce leads. What I need to understand is, why am I doing it? Because if the answer is we only need 500, but we need them to a much better quality, and we need triage SDR, etc., people will figure that out for themselves. It's back to that leadership point. They're looking for clarity. Is the other thing that can happen is clever people will get creative when they don't have clarity. Some people do nothing, right? They don't like to change because they're scared of that change. Others will just simply interpret what they think the right answer is. And so I think a good fractional CMO, when they come in, that team should look to them and actually say, okay, why am I here? Why am I doing what I'm doing? What I wouldn't expect is for them to kind of meddle around in the tactical from day one. But that's coming from my point of view. Because if you're looking at a team that, the chances are, most folks come to work to do their best, right? There's a few folks out there who maybe come in and do a lousy job. And I think Stefan identified that, right? You've got to weed them out pretty quick.
Stefan, what do you think? You're an employee, you're a junior or mid-level employee on a marketing team. The company's just hired a fractional CMO. Like, what should you do as the employee? What should your moves be?
Okay.
Stay off the radar. Try to get a meeting. What are you doing?
Yeah, usually when there are changes in the C-level, so it means increased pressure on results, marketing or sales. it means the company is not happy with the results. So usually there are some. So it means they're gonna try to scale. So scaling means more. There's gonna be more money. So maybe there's gonna be new people in the department, or there might be some changes within like responsibilities. So my first thing would be meeting the CMO and asking him or her or them how is my performance judged now? What are
Oh,
the
that's a
new
good question. Yeah.
what are the new okay, so how do you see if before you had an inbound department consisting of two writers and let's say a content marketer, how do you see the new content department? Do you want to invest more? As an employee, I don't know what's working better or not, right? Maybe I'm gonna ask him or her or them, um, what do you want to focus on more and in the next queue. So I know maybe the problem is not in me, maybe it's just he wants to grow, or she wants to grow a different department, because that's what will brings more leads. And then maybe in 3 months I should be in fact looking for a new job, because what I'm doing is not bringing they don't see that, they cannot attribute that to money, right? So if I've been writing, I don't know, maybe I was doing content because content in SaaS is the god. Everyone is clearly crazy about content. Like if they don't see content as an attribution to revenue, well, I should look for a new job then, because
Right.
it might disappear. And again, the question would be, I would like from that person, from the CMO, for I want to see a new design for the department. Like, okay, this is my vision. So the first and biggest thing is leadership, as Tani mentioned. I would need to see leadership from that person. I want to see what's the vision for the department, and the KPIs by which everyone is judged. So yeah, that's the answer.
Okay. And then this has been great, guys. I really appreciate this. We're gonna like work our way out of it, right? And so, Stefan, we'll start with you. So it's a 3-part question, but 2 parts are super easy. Maybe the first one is to: do you prefer, as a fractional CMO, do you prefer fixed length engagements or ongoing engagements? Basically, sprints versus marathons. And then also, given the answer that you're going to give, um, who should be reaching out to you, and how should they connect with you? So,
Awesome.
sprint or marathon, who should be contacting you, and how do you prefer them to contact you?
I prefer marathons,
Yeah.
to be honest. Sprints are good, but like, I really want to get into the product, understand the product we're selling. You cannot do good marketing without knowing the product and
Right.
your ICP. So that's why it's better if, even if it's like half a year, I know that for half a year I'm being left alone, and so I can sort of sell to my audience the product that I want to sell. Um, how can people contact me? It's very easy. It's like it's my email, Stefan at luckboosters.com. Luckboosters.com is my website, but you can also find me on LinkedIn, Stefan Repin, Repin. That's my last
Right.
name.
And
Um,
who should be reaching out to you?
um, People who are in B2B, people who have companies, and who want to grow their product or service, and they have their sales cycle is quite long, let's say from 3 months and up, and they're selling enterprise solutions to enterprise.
Right.
Best match with SMBs who want to sell to enterprise.
All right. And Tony, sprint or marathon, who should be reaching out to you, and how should they get in touch with you?
So I think my way of answering this, and maybe I'm just sore from working 17 years in enterprise text, is everything's a sprint because it's 90 days.
Yeah.
My preference is, at least there's the plan and the discussion is the marathon, because then you're tied to strategic objectives. Tactical is just it's nasty. It's difficult to kind of generate really quick results in really quick time. But if you're in startup, that's absolutely the name of the game, right? So there's a little bit of, is it marathon, is it sprint? Depends on the type of engagement. But I think that's the reality. Is it's everything is 90 days. So plan
Right.
around that 90-day time frame.
So based on that, who should be contacting you, and how should they do it?
So for me, it's CEOs. It's where they have stalled growth. It's where they've said, "Hey, we've got the business strategy sorted, but for whatever reason, that implementation is just not happening. I'm not seeing the actions I expect." That happens. It happens, I mean, all up and down the size of organization, but I'd say the sweet spot for me from experience is in about that 50 to 500.
Right.
So it's where a certain level of organizational complexity is the thing that gets in the way. Lots of people running around with their own version of what the new message is and the new strategy, and it's a mess. So CEOs 50 to 500 stall growth. Find me on LinkedIn is the easiest place. So it's Tony Watkins. If you want to look at the stuff that I do, chiltonmarketingstrategy.com. But you can link off of that from my profile. So keep it simple, straight LinkedIn, away you go.
Amen. All right. Well, thank you guys. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate it. It was great to have you here. And thanks for watching, everyone. And we'll see you in the next episode.
Perfect.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.